I want to show you guys this. There was a coronal mass ejection on January 29th. And as I've stated before in my past live streams just a few days ago, that we were going to be waiting for this coronal mass ejection. It would definitely happen between the 29th, 30th, or the 31st. Bingo. Right before this coronal mass ejection, both myself and Mark over at Wages World were both monitoring the sun. We were watching some things going on the SDO, the Solar Dynamics Observatory that monitors the sun. And I saw a very, very large plasma ejection around the 11 o'clock position on the sun. And I said to myself, ooh, there it is. Because that, and I'll show you the video on it, but that plasma ejection, it was very large. It came out and then it curved downward. Now, that's kind of odd for that type of filament or plasma release. Usually when they come out, they're just straight out. But I've seen this so many times over the years now, and along with the actual date, I said to myself, ooh, I better take a closer look at that. Sure as hell, whenever I took a closer look at the SDO footage, I said to myself, yep, I think I see an object passing through the sun's corona. Close enough, it pulled the plasma from the sun. That's why the plasma had the outward motion and then the downward motion, because that would be the motion of this Planet X object as it's going downward. It's going away from the sun now. And today, it is probably down below the sun's ecliptic. And in about, I would say in about 7 to 10 days, maybe more, 7 to 12 days, it's going to be coming right back up. And we will probably see, once again, another coronal mass ejection sometime between, I would put it closer to the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, somewhere around there. So this object does orbit every 28 days. This is why we are seeing the consistency in the coronal mass ejections, the earthquakes, the volcanic activity. It's all jiving together. So when other people are putting these other videos out there, look, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess these people think they know what they're talking about, but they're not really showing you real, true, hardcore evidence. You're only going to see it right here. That's it. This is literally the only place in the freaking world that you're going to see the realest evidence, the realest photographic evidence. I'm going to zoom into this. And when I initially saw this on the Cactus Coronagraph program, it's only 10 frames that they give you. That's it. And the 10 frames go by in 10 seconds. So I literally have to download that 10 seconds. I have to put it in one of my programs to create an ultra high definition 4K video of it. Then I put it into another software program, and it allows me to slow it down to the point where it's not blurry. You know, you could use common Microsoft Windows viewer video program, they do have a slow mode, 25, 50, 75%. You could slow it down. But whenever you do that in those cheap programs, it gets blurry and you really can't see anything. So you really need a really, really good movie making software program that will allow you to get into micro frames. And that's one of the techniques that I use. So once I isolated, because I saw this damn thing, when I slowed it down, look, it was the 29th. I already knew it was going to be there. As soon as I got a notification that there was a coronal mass ejection, I knew it. I did have to wait 24 hours in order for the data to catch up. Once the data caught up, bingo, man. That's it. So I went through my process, did what I had to do, and there you go, folks. This is now, out of the collection of photo captures that I have, that I've acquired myself, this happens to be one of the best. Amazing. I showed it to Mark over at Wages World. I think his exact quote was, "Oh shit." Because that was exactly my reaction. Holy hell, you know. Let's zoom into it a little bit. Now, I took a still shot of this, and I created an ultra high definition 4K image, so there's no pixels, no blurring, nothing. And that is as good as you are going to get. It is absolutely amazing. You know, I sat here yesterday and I was going to do a live stream yesterday, but I had so much additional work to do on my my other news website, and I'll be honest with you guys, I did a lot of thinking, you know, a lot of personal thinking about what I'm seeing, you know, and not too often do I get speechless. You all know that by now. But this damn image, this capture here, it really freaked me out. I mean, it consumed me yesterday. And I sat here and I stared at it and I stared at it and I stared at it. And I said to myself, holy hell, you know, could you only imagine seeing this photograph in the mainstream media around the world? Billions of people seeing it for the first time. That will never happen. That will never, ever happen. Oh, we'll take a look at some of the comments here. Yeah, this thing is pretty damn big. One thing that I did notice about this particular image, it does look quite large. However, you have to remember the trajectory of this object, okay? So In reality, when this particular frame was snapped by the LASCO C2 coronagraph, this object wasn't exactly next to the sun. It was actually coming towards the camera. So therefore, in perception, it looks bigger. Now, there's no way for me to tell how far away it was from the sun. But remember, in its orbit, it comes around the sun and then it starts coming back down. As it's coming back down, if I'm the camera, if my face is the camera, it's now coming downward. So it's coming downward just like this. So it's actually coming towards the spacecraft. But the spacecraft is 92 million miles away. But it has a massive, massive telescopic lens. So that C2 camera is zoomed in, unlike the C3 camera, which is not. So the C2 is the red coronagraph. The C3 is the blue one that you see me use frequently. So I think that's why it looks bigger in this photograph than it really is. Now let's not pull punches here. The damn thing is huge. Estimate 5 to 7 times the size of Jupiter. But it's big. That's a big boy right there. I'm going to show you this in another filter. I put this little post together. I shared this yesterday on the private network, the Planet X News private network for members only. And I usually give everybody their first dibs on seeing this information. And I put together in this photograph the actual cactus snapshot, which gives the exact date and time, and I put it on a larger view. It is amazing, man. This is just an absolutely amazing capture. We're going to look at the other photograph that is in a little bit of a tinted filter. And this one program I got, man, I'm telling you what, this damn thing is just kick ass. Here's the original right here. So this was before I was able to use the other program to isolate this damn thing. And let me zoom in here so you guys can see it. So that's all the way zoomed in. You can see that bad boy right there. So as soon as I was able to isolate that and get the higher definition photographs, bingo. This is our bad boy right here. And I added just a tiny bit of this other grayer color to the backdrop right here. Try to bring out a little bit more definition. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom into this thing. And it won't pixelate. So let me back it down a little bit so it's at least a little bit clearer. Now, the big round circle that you see here where the word cactus is in the middle, that's not the size of the sun. That is the occulter. That blocks out the rays of the sun so the camera on the spacecraft can get a view of the coronal mass ejections. So that's not the size of the sun. Usually It would be probably pretty close to that size. There's a circle in the center on the regular coronagraph, the red one that signifies the size of the sun. But like I said, in this view, this object is now moving towards the spacecraft. And this was just one micro frame, man. Just one frame. That's it. Because I was getting kind of worried that they were going to censor the information or clean the information up. You know, we have a lot of issues with them not posting the data on time. And then sometimes we have to wait days and days and days and days and days to get it. But I think it's pretty fascinating, even though this object is definitely causing some issues with the Earth's magnetic field. And that is what is causing the outbreaks of earthquakes. And there is no doubt in my mind that that is what is increasing the volcanic eruptions. And those two factors, folks, especially the earthquakes, they're deadly. You know, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and Cuba, that big 7.7 earthquake, man, they dodged a bullet, man. They dodged a bullet with that earthquake. If that earthquake would have been a vertical flux upward on the seafloor, I think we would have been looking at a lot of fatalities and a lot of damage in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. More than just sinkholes and a few cracked buildings. But that's the kind of slip fault that they have in that area. But see, around the world, there's a lot of faults, all of our tectonic plates, and not all of them are slip faults that slide back and forth. So that's a big issue. I want to show you guys something. Let's jump out of here real quick. What the hell did that say? Hold on one second. Okay. I recorded all this this morning, very, very early. This is our magnetosphere, and you guys are going to see some impacts coming in. And there you go. Boom. And just watch it. Just watch the impacts. You'll see three different versions of this. It's all the same. Whenever we have these situations like this, folks, this is when a lot of that energy is getting in past our magnetic field, our shield. This impacts the Earth, and this does create the majority of the earthquakes, the bigger ones. And during this time frame, this morning, I was checking the earthquake maps. This earthquake scattered across the entire map. Nothing major, but a lot of magnitude 5s and high 4s. Now, usually when we see situations like this, this does take sometimes 24 to 72 hours before these heavily charged particles that are breaking through. Usually takes a little bit of time for them to really sink in through the Earth's crust, through the mantle. And then shortly after that, we see the rise in seismic activity. Now, the other day when we had the magnitude 7.7, that was a little bit different because that was a direct strike from a bullseye coronal mass ejection that was pointed directly at the Earth. So a little bit of a different scenario there. That direct hit from a coronal mass ejection, that's going to cause seismic activity pretty much instantaneously, give or take a few hours, but it's going to happen. And it all depends on what part of the Earth was facing that coronal mass ejection at the time. And it's normally going to be somewhere around the equator. Okay, either just a little bit north of the equator or just a little bit south of the equator, because the Earth sits just below the sun's equator, and that coronal mass ejection came from that area. So right where it hit, it was a bullseye, and that's what created those two large earthquakes, the 7.7 and the 6.2 near the Cayman. And it hit right on that fault. What you're seeing here is the electron flux, and the dotted line is the satellite belt around the Earth. And you can see from the 29th how inflamed it was. The electron counts were very, very, very high. And I've been working on that electron flux for about a year now, because the reason being is when we see these high electron flux issues like you're seeing here, it usually coincides with the passing upward and downward of this object as it loops around the sun. To me, all of my data proves that to be a fact. On the day of the magnitude 7.7 near Jamaica, there was a massive electron flux. Straight up. Within 2 hours, that massive earthquake struck. Coincidence? Don't think so. It's not what the data shows. And then the electron flux leveled out just a little bit, but then it spiked a little bit more. And then we get into this situation here where it looks like it's solar wind coming in, but it's really not. This is due to the downward passing of this object. And if we go to the magnetosphere models right now, it's probably relatively calm. We should start to see some calmer situations for the next, like I said, 10 to 12 days. And then we'll be right back to where we started from every single month. Like I've said before, folks, the biggest problem that I see is as we get further and further into this solar minimum and the Earth's magnetic field gets weaker over this next decade. I don't have a crystal ball to shine up and give you the future, but I can tell you from my knowledge and my experience, everything that we're seeing happening on this Earth today, each year that goes by, you can just magnify that by tenfold. So what I'm saying is the situation is going to get worse over this next decade. What happens? I don't know, but it's probably not going to be good. I mean, that's just a fact. It's just a fact. I don't think that it's ever going to be anything that will end the Earth. I don't think that. But it's definitely going to change things. In a decade, I'll be 62 years old. I'll be close to the end of my life if I'm not close to it already. Who knows? I don't know. I could live to be 90. I could live to be a freaking 100. I doubt it. But there is a part of me that wants to live through all of this to see, I don't know, maybe call it a weird curiosity. You know, I have years and years and years and years of work and my time and my brain power invested into this. And I think that's probably why I want to see it through. After the solar minimum blows by, we enter into another phase of a solar maximum. And that's where the sun has a lot of activity, a lot of sunspots, a lot of active regions polluting around the entire sun, all of which are normally just above, below, and right on the equator of the sun where the Earth is. So just because that decade, this next decade goes by, and things become more problematic, doesn't mean after this decade is over that things are going to be normal again. That is the furthest from the truth. Because during a solar minimum, we will be looking at much, much larger coronal mass ejections. I'm talking full-blown halo coronal mass ejections that will be 10, 50, 100 times more powerful than what we're seeing now. The only hopes is that the Earth's magnetic field holds up, because the Earth's magnetic field works off of the sun's magnetic field. So when the sun's magnetic field is weak, so is ours. So after the solar minimum is over and we go into a solar maximum, we could only hope that the Earth isn't that damaged. Our magnetic field isn't that damaged. It repairs itself. It heals itself. But what I'm worried about is the interaction with this object's magnetic field, the sun's magnetic field, and how it's going to interact with the Earth. So that's 10 years from now. Anything could happen. Anything. It's just sometimes mind-boggling, you know. I'm going to show you this other quick video. This is what got me noticing and watching very carefully. If you watch up here, I slowed this down. This is in a high definition also. You're going to see the filament release in the plasma being pulled from the sun right here. And like I said a little bit ago, you're going to see that plasma being pulled off and then bending down. Well, this is where this object is passing right by and right through the sun's corona. And right after this piece of footage was captured, 1 hour later, on the Cactus program where we caught this object, that produced the larger coronal mass ejection, and it gave us the opportunity to see this object. So if you train your eye on that, if I tried to slow it down and go frame by frame, but it kind of gets lost in the darkness in the back. because this is in extreme ultraviolet light at 181 angstroms. You could, I'm going to just jut back here for a second. You could barely see. I'll try to stop it. Right here. And you could see this line here. That's plasma that it has pulled right off of the sun because it's so close. I'd probably say that looks to be, probably about 150,000 miles, maybe 200,000 miles from the sun. I know it doesn't look like it from your perspective, but considering the sun is 865,000 miles in diameter, that's a pretty good estimate. But you could see it right here. And when I start it, and you could see how it goes downward. And that's right in the same trajectory as the 28-day orbit on the 29th of January, as it's making its exodus and then dropping below the sun's ecliptic, the middle point. Now, this was the first version of the coronal mass ejection. They only gave, I think, just a few frames, and that's why I had to wait about 24 hours, because usually if I wait, I'll get more frames, I'll get more data. And I've learned to wait a day, sometimes even 2 days, before that extra data comes in. I don't know if it's the fact of them loading it or the fact of how it's transmitted back to the Earth. I don't really know, but I do know there are delays in it. And this was just showing you the coronal mass ejection from different perspectives. Not going to really see much from here. You're not going to see the object from here because of the view. But once I saw the update on the cactus, I said to myself, holy shit, there we go. Right on time. Right on time, man. Now, here on the stereo core 2, you could see a little bit, but not much. It's very highly pixelated and a lot of interference. But this this short video piece here from the SDO, I've seen this many times before, and this tells me to be on the lookout. And sure enough, 2 hours later, bingo, it was right where it was supposed to be. Now, some people will argue and they'll say, oh, that was nothing more than, a plasma release or a filament release. But if it was, well, why would it be making such a sharp turn downward? Doesn't work that way, folks. If it was just a natural plasma release or a filament release, it would just go straight out and disappear into space. But this is different. This is a very large object passing very close to the sun and within the sun's corona. And it is disturbing the corona as it literally pulls plasma from the outer surface of the sun, therefore creating the visual that you're seeing right on your screen. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's Planet X science. I'll let you see it a couple more times. Pretty amazing, man. Pretty amazing that this object is able to do that. That is telling me that it definitely has a very, very strong magnetic field. In order for it to pull plasma from the sun, it definitely has to have a very strong magnetic field. I believe its strong magnetic field is due to the fact of its very, very fast rotation on its axis, just like the Earth. We spin about 1,000 miles an hour. I think this object probably spins, who knows, 5 times that speed. That's one thing that we don't know. We don't know how fast it rotates. We probably will never know that. Here's one more quick shot of it. Absolutely amazing. I'd have to put this photo capture definitely in the top 5. No doubt. Still has me speechless. And then you have all of the people out there that still debate that this is nothing more than a conspiracy. But yet, every month, twice a month, for years, I've been showing the world, well, a small part of it, the proof, the evidence. And then you still have people out there that don't pay attention, that don't see my videos, and they're still caught up in the government misinformation about Nibiru and Nancy Leader and the rest of the hocus pocus bunch on YouTube that think that this is in a 3,600 year orbit and the Anunnaki aliens are riding on that planet. But anybody that watches this channel and follows this information right here, you know that is a bunch of BS. The earliest that I think this object came in and was captured by the sun's gravity was probably around 2007, if not earlier. The only video photographic evidence that I have dates back to 2007. Shortly after that was captured on the Stereo B coronagraph spacecraft, it was taken out of commission. We don't have access to it anymore. And I think the reason why is because with the Stereo A spacecraft to the left of the Earth and the Stereo B spacecraft to the right of the Earth, we would have had a triangulated view constantly. We would have been able to see this object not twice a month, but probably all of the time. And then somebody like me was bound to see it, bound to discover it, and disclose it. And there we are. So the 28-day orbit speaks for itself. Once again, almost 3 years of my work trying to prove it. And I think by now it has proven itself. On target, baby. Right on the money. Look, folks, I'd appreciate all of you, sharing the video. And all of you should know the dynamics of this by now. If you've been listening to me for at least a year or less, you should know the truth. You should be out there helping others understand that it's not Nibiru. It's not on a 3,600 year orbit. It is what it is. Now we have the truth. That's what means the most. The truth. And we see what's happening to our planet. We see the changes. And that's what's more critical at this point in time. Because all of these events that occur, whether they be volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, the very, very serious climate change, remember one thing. When these things occur, which are much more frequent now, people lose their lives. People lose their homes. People lose everything they have. That's the sad part. And unfortunately, that's the part that we cannot control. But we can help others by educating them the best that we can. And not delve out lies and fake stuff. This is real life. It's not just a YouTube video. Just not some guy on YouTube showing you wacky pictures. You're looking at real life. And again, I think everybody in the world should know about this. I think everybody in the world should have a chance to understand it. Be prepared up here. But that's never going to happen.